we completed module 1 and 2 successfully. Today we will start with module 3, that is all about design of FIR filter. So in this module what we see how to design an FIR filter using various windowing techniques, and also we try to realize various structures of FIR filter in this module. In fourth module we will study all about IR filters. Now let us understand what do you mean by a filter. So in a general sense, filter is nothing but a component which removes unwanted quantity from a given input signal. So now if we speak about digital filter, so a digital filter is a component which performs digital operations on the given input signal to reduce or enhance some quality in that particular input signal. So if I look into the classifications of digital filters are classified into FIR filter and IIR filter. The second classification is IIR filter. Okay. So FIR filter is nothing but finite impulse response filter, and IIR filter is infinite impulse response filter. So in this module we will completely study with respect to FIR filter. In the upcoming module let us see what is an IR filter, how to design an IR filter, what are the different types of IR filter, and how to realize IR filter using various structures. Now let us move on in detail and see what is an FIR filter and what are the characteristics of an FIR filter. If we speak about FIR filter, as the name indicates, so the number of samples present in its unit sample response, that is its unit sample response is always finite. So this is the first thing why the name FIR filter, that is the number of samples present in the unit sample response of this particular FIR filter is finite. So FIR filter is also called as non-recursive filter, and this particular FIR filter will not have any feedback. So feedback is absent in FIR filter. Now in this FIR filter, all the FIR filter will have linear phase. So these are the most important qualities of an FIR filter, that is the number of samples in its unit sample response is finite, so we call it as finite impulse response filter. The second point is FIR filter is also called as non-recursive filter. The third point is feedback is absent in FIR filter, and this FIR filter will have linear phase. If we look into some more points related to FIR filter, the output of FIR filter mainly depends upon two parameters, that is it depends upon past inputs as well as the present input. So this is one more point which we need to know with respect to FIR filter. So if I write the system function or the transfer function of a filter generally, we can write it as h of z, which is equal to b0 plus b1 into z inverse plus b2 into z power minus 2, similarly up to bn into z to the power of minus n whole divided by 1 plus a1 into z power minus 1 plus a2 into z power minus 2 plus similarly up to am into z power minus m. So this is the general system function or the transfer function of a filter. So if I look into this, we all know transfer function contains zeros and poles. So the numerator parts tells the zeros present in the system. Similarly, the denominator part tells the poles present in the system. Therefore, if the transfer function of any filter contains both poles and zeros, then it is nothing but an IR filter. Okay. Now, if the transfer function only contains 0, then it is nothing but our FIR filter. So, this is the basic difference between FIR and IR filter. That is, in the transfer function of an IR filter, it contains both poles and zeros, and in FIR filter, it contains only zeros. So, if I write the system function of an FIR filter, I can write it as H of Z, which will be equal to B0 plus B1 Z power minus 1 plus B2 Z power minus 2 plus similarly up to Bn Z power minus n. So, this is the system function for IIR filter, and this is the system function for FIR filter, where B0, B1, B2, Bn are nothing but the filter coefficients. So, this is one of the important thing. So, these are all the characteristics of FIR filter. So, if I look into FIR filter, this FIR filter avoids or it removes quantization noise also. So, that can also be taken as one of the important point related to FIR filter. So, it reduces the quantization noise present in the signal. So, this is all about the introduction of what is an FIR filter, what are the characteristics of an FIR filter. Moving on to the first concept in module number 3, that is characteristics of practical frequency selective filters. Let us speak with respect to ideal filters. So, ideal filters are non-causal filters. These are non-causal filters. Since they are non-causal, they are not used in the realization of real-time signal processing applications. If I speak with respect to causality, so causality is nothing but the condition where the frequency response characteristics h of omega cannot be equal to 0 only except at some finite set of frequency ranges, and also h of omega cannot have a sharp transition from pass band to stop band. So, even though the characteristics of ideal filters are desirable, but in most of the practical applications, these ideal filters are not preferred. So, now let us see how the characteristics of a practical filter looks like. Since the ideal filter characteristics are desirable, but it is not used for most of the practical application. So, what we do is we insist, it is insisted to have some tolerable ripples both at pass band as well as stop band. So, if we look into the characteristics, magnitude characteristics of an FIR filter, so let the y axis be magnitude of h of omega and x axis be omega. So, if I draw the pass band, so we tell that certain ripple is tolerable both at pass band as well as stop band. So, these are nothing but the ripples at pass band and these are the ripples at stop band. Now, if we look into this entire portion, that is this entire portion is called as pass band, or you can call it as pass band ripple, and this is nothing but stop band. So, in practical filters, some ripple both at passband and stopband are tolerable. So if I try to find out the transition band, so transition band is nothing but the region from where we fall from passband to stopband, and this region is called as transition band, or you can call it as transition region also. So this is the frequency omega p and this is omega s. Okay. So what is omega p? Omega p is nothing but passband edge frequency. Omega p is passband edge frequency, and omega s is nothing but stop band edge frequency. Omega p tells where the stop band ends. So it tells the edge of passband. Okay. Omega p tells the end of passband, that is it tells where the passband ends, whereas omega s, that is the stop band edge frequency, tells where the stop band starts. So these are two things which we keep into consideration. Now if I speak with respect to ripple, so if we tell certain amount of ripple can be present in the passband, and if the ripple is present, we denote that ripple in the passband as del 1. So it is nothing but passband ripple, and the magnitude of h of omega will vary from 1 plus del 1 to 1 minus del 1 if the ripples are present in the passband. Similarly, del 2 is nothing but the stop band ripple. So del 2 or delta 2 is nothing but the stop band ripple, which is denoted by delta 2. So these are the parameters which we need to keep in consideration. Okay. So now if I want to find out the width of transition band, so I said this is nothing but a transition band. Therefore, the width of transition band will be equal to omega s minus omega p. Okay. So now if I want to find out the bandwidth of this particular filter, the width of the pass band gives us the bandwidth of a filter. Summarizing everything, so in the frequency response of a practical filter, we will have pass band, transition band and stop band. Certain amount of ripple is tolerable both in pass band and stop band. If we have ripple in pass band, we denote it with delta 1, which is called as pass band ripple, and in the characteristics, the magnitude of h of omega will vary from 1 plus delta 1 to 1 minus delta 1 if ripple is present in pass band. Similarly, if ripple is present in stop band, we denote it with delta 2, and the region from where we move from pass band to stop band, that particular region is called as transition band or transition region. And if I try to find out width of transition region, so it will be equal to omega s minus omega p. In order to find out the bandwidth of a filter, so it is nothing but the width of the pass band. So whenever we design any filter, these are the 4 parameters which we need to keep in consideration. That is, the first parameter is pass band edge frequency, the second one is stop band edge frequency, the third one is maximum tolerable pass band ripple, and the fourth one is maximum tolerable stop band ripple. Keeping these 4 things in mind, what we do is we choose the filter coefficients AK and BK, which is helpful for the design purpose of any FIR filter. So this is all about the characteristics of practical frequency selective filters. To accommodate the large range in the frequency response of a filter, what we do is we use logarithmic scale. When we use logarithmic scale, the pass band ripple will be equal to So if I want to find out the passband ripple, that is equal to 20 log delta 1 to the base 10. Similarly, if I want to find out the stop band ripple, so the stop band ripple will be equal to 20 log delta 2 to the base 10. The next concept is symmetric and antisymmetric FIR filter. Now if I consider x of n as input to the filter, and if the length of x of n is equal to m, the output y of n is given by y of n, which is equal to b naught into x of n plus b1 into x of n minus 1 plus b2 into x of n minus 2, similarly up to bm minus 1 into x of n minus m plus 1. So if I write this equation in a general format, I can write it as y of n will be equal to summation k ranges from 0 to m minus 1 bk into x of n minus k. So what I have done, instead of this all numbers, that is digits 0, 1, m minus 1, I have termed it with a variable k. Since we are adding all these terms, I have taken it as summation. Now I can also express the output y of n as a convolution of the input x of n and the unit sample response h of n. So if I rewrite the equation with respect to convolution form, so I can write y of n as y of n will be equal to summation k ranges from 0 to m minus 1 h of k into x of n minus k. Okay, so this is the output y of n where the impulse response is convolved with that of the input. Now what let us do is, so let me term this as equation 1, let this be equation 2. Looking into equation 1 and 2, the summation limits are same, x of n minus k is similar, but what is varying? bk is replaced with h of k. So what we can do? By comparing equation 1 and 2, comparing equations 1 and 2, so bk will be equal to h of k for k ranging from 0 to m minus 1. Okay. Now if I write the system function of an FIR filter, that is the transfer function h of z, which will be equal to summation k ranges from 0 to m minus 1 h of k into z bar minus k. So this is nothing but the system function of an FIR filter. We say a FIR filter will have linear phase if and only if it satisfies the condition h of n, which is equal to plus or minus h of m minus 1 minus m. That is, if h of n is equal to h of m minus 1 minus n, then we say it is a symmetric FIR filter, and if h of n is equal to minus h of m minus 1 minus n, we say it is a antisymmetric FIR filter. Therefore, if these two conditions are satisfied, then we say the FIR filter will have linear phase. Now what let us do? Let us consider first condition as symmetry, then let us take m as even and let us see what is the frequency response which we are going to get, and similarly let us consider the condition as symmetric and let the value of m be even, and let us check what will be the frequency response which we are going to get. Now I have taken the first case where m is even and I have considered h of n as symmetric. So let us consider the Fourier transform of unit impulse response h of omega, which is equal to summation n ranges from 0 to m minus 1 h of n into e power minus j omega n. Now I need to split this particular summation. So what I have considered the value of m as even, so I will consider the value of m be equal to 8. If it is equal to 8, the indexing will be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and 7. Okay. So, the initial value or the lower limit of first summation will be 0. I divide the sample such that it will have equal number of samples. Okay. So, what will be the upper limit of first summation? I need to get the indexing as 3. For that, what I need to do, I can divide m by 2. So, if I divide m by 2, I get it as 4. So, 4 minus 1 gives us 3. So, the upper limit will be m minus 2, m by 2 minus 1. So, what is the lower limit of second summation? It will be m by 2. Why m by 2? The value of m is 8, 8 by 2 gives us 4. Similarly, the upper limit will be equal to m minus 1. So, based on this, let us divide this summation into two summations such that each summation will have equal number of samples. Therefore, h of omega will be equal to summation n ranges from 0 to m by 2 minus 1 h of n into e power minus j omega n plus summation n ranges from m by 2 to m minus 1 h of n into e power minus j omega n. Now what let us do is, let us consider the second summation and let us try to reduce the second summation and let us combine it later with the first term. So let nu, in order to avoid confusion, I will write the value of n as nu be equal to m minus 1 minus n. This n is nothing but the old value in second summation. If so, if I am changing the value of n, definitely the limits also changes, yes. So, if the value of n is equal to m by 2, so the new value of n will be equal to m minus 1 minus, instead of n I need to substitute it as m by 2. Therefore, the new value of n will be equal to m by 2 minus 1. So, what is the upper limit? It is m minus 1. Let us check what will be the new value. If n is equal to m minus 1, therefore, the new value of n which we get is m minus 1 minus m plus 1. So, all the terms gets cancelled and the new value of n is equal to 0. Now, let us write the substitution in second summation and let us see what is the equation for h of omega. Therefore, h of omega will be equal to summation n ranges from 0 to m by 2 minus 1 into h of n into e power minus j omega n plus summation, what is the new value of n when n is equal to m by 2? So, it is equal to m by 2 minus 1. So, this will be equal to m by 2 minus 1 and the upper limit is 0 into h of m minus 1 minus n into e power minus j omega m minus 1 minus n. So, what I have done in this particular equation, I have changed the limits and I have replaced the value for n, variable n. Now, we all know what is the condition which we have considered. We have considered it as a symmetric filter. So, if so, for symmetric, what is the condition which it will satisfy? So, h of n will be equal to h of m minus 1 minus m. Okay. Since we have considered the condition as symmetric, I can write h of m minus 1 minus n as h of n. So, what I will do? I will replace this term with h of n and also I will change the order of summation. So, if I rewrite the equation, therefore, h of omega will be equal to summation n ranges from 0 to m by 2 minus 1 h of n into e power minus j omega n plus summation n ranges from 0 to m by 2 minus 1. Instead of h of m minus 1 minus n, I will write it as h of n into e power, let me split this exponential terms and write. So e power j omega into m minus 1 into e power minus into minus plus j omega n. Now looking into this particular equation, what are the common terms in both the summation? I can take this summation as common part as well as h of n as a common part. So let us take and rewrite. Therefore h of omega will be equal to summation n ranges from 0 to m by 2 minus 1 into h of n, and the terms left out in this term is e power minus j omega n, plus in the second term it will be e power minus j omega into m minus 1 into e power plus j omega n. Now for the purpose of simplification, let us take, so this exponential term is multiplied with 1, and instead of 1 let us take a substitution with respect to exponential term. That is, therefore h of omega will be equal to summation n ranges from 0 to m by 2 minus 1 into h of n into e power minus j omega n into e power minus j omega m minus 1 by 2 into e power plus j omega m minus 1 by 2 plus. So if I combine these two things, you will get exponential to the power of 0. So we know e power 0 is nothing but equal to 1. Similarly, I will divide this exponential term into 2 equal halves. So if I divide that, it will be equal to e power minus j omega m minus 1 by 2 into e power minus j omega m minus 1 by 2 into e power plus j omega n. Now looking into this equation, what is the common factor which we have? We have e power minus j omega m minus 1 by 2 in both the terms. So let us take that as a common factor and let us rewrite this equation. So if I continue the derivation, I have taken e power minus j omega m minus 1 by 2 as a common factor. Now let us combine these two exponential terms, that is, I will take e power j omega as a common factor in these two. Similarly here I will take e power minus j omega as a common factor in these two. So let us rewrite the equation, that is, summation n ranges from 0 to m by 2 minus 1 into h of n into e power minus j omega into m minus 1 by 2 into e power, if I take j omega as a common factor, the term left out here will be m minus 1 by 2, and here the term left out is minus n, plus in these two terms, if I take e power minus j omega as the common factor, the terms left out will be m minus 1 by 2 minus n. So now looking into this particular term, it is in the form of e power j theta plus e power minus j theta. So we all know the equation, that is e power j theta plus e power minus j theta is nothing but equal to 2 cos theta, trigonometric formula. So let us rewrite this particular equation in terms of cos. So if I write it in terms of cos, h of omega will be equal to summation n ranges from 0 to m by 2 minus 1 h of n into e power minus j omega m minus 1 by 2 into 2 cos. So what is theta here? So this entire thing is nothing but a theta. So it will be cos omega m minus 1 by 2 minus n. So if I just rewrite the equation by taking 2 outside the summation, so h of omega will be equal to 2 into summation n ranges from 0 to m by 2 minus 1 h of n cos omega m minus 1 by 2 minus n into e power minus j omega m minus 1 by 2. So if I write this h of omega in the standard polar form, so I can write it as h of omega, which will be equal to magnitude of h of omega into e power j angle of h of omega. Now if I look here, so what is magnitude of h of omega? So what is the terms for magnitude of h of omega? Therefore magnitude of h of omega will be equal to 2 into summation n ranges from 0 to m by 2 minus 1 into h of n cos omega m minus 1 by 2 minus n. So whereas the angle h of omega will be equal to, so if I compare these two terms, so I have written this as my magnitude term. So in the exponential term, what is the angle? We have it as minus omega m minus 1 by 2. So it is equal to minus omega m minus 1 by 2. So if it is greater than 0, the angle will be equal to minus omega m minus 1 by 2 plus pi. Now looking into this angle condition, the parameter m minus 1 by 2 is a constant term. So since it is a constant term, we can conclude that h of omega varies linearly with respect to omega. So hence we proved in the first case, when the value of m is even and if the condition is considered to be symmetric, the FIR filter will have linear phase. So in the second case, let us take the value of m as odd and let us take the condition of h of n as symmetric, and let us see what are the conditions which we are getting for magnitude of h of omega as well as angle of h of omega. So in today's class, what all we saw the characteristics of practical selective filters, and then we saw concepts related to symmetric and antisymmetric filter. In that we dealt with case 1. So in upcoming classes, let us deal with case 2. So thank you for today's session.